What's up, cousins? So, I had a question from Coding with Ash. Now, I don't always respond to random questions from people on the internet because most of the questions I get are along the lines of, hey, will you send me money? Or, hey, will you write this code for me? Or something like that. And I don't tend to help those sorts of people because I don't think they even really understand that learning to solve one's own problems is probably in the best interest of everyone involved, myself included. In this particular case, I was asked a sincere question about someone who has a rigid schedule and is already working hard to become an Android developer, a good programmer, and they're asking a specific question having already done a lot of the work themselves. And someone who's in a situation which I can on a certain level relate to. And for those kinds of people, I will make time for you if I can to help and share whatever little information I can. In this case, we have a person who is trying to study and practice the skill of writing code alongside having a very busy work schedule in a job that doesn't have anything to do with programming, so far as I'm aware. Pretty sure that's the case, but let's just run with that anyways. So this person has a study period between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. They begin work at 8:30 a.m. and then they end work at 8:30 p.m. Excuse me. And then after 8:30 p.m., this person tries to have another study block or, work block type thing, coding practice, between 9 p.m. and 12 a.m. So there's a lot to go into. The first thing I'd like to say is this person, basically the gist of their question is, I'm having trouble focusing, and in particular in the 9 to 12, I'll try and keep my freakishly long arm within the camera angle here. In the 9 to 12 block is when this person is trying to write code, and they're having trouble getting their mind to stay on task and actually do that. And so this person, is getting distracted and basically procrastinating on the code practice. They don't have trouble watching good videos and like putting good sort of articles and educational content and that kind of stuff. So it's not so much like a time wasting problem, but the problem is quite specifically, I can't get my mind to focus on the coding in particular, that practical side of things. And then usually, so far as I understand, the mind just is content to study, keep studying videos, but also at the same time, this person is getting a little annoyed, I can tell, at their own inability to focus on the coding practice. So there's a lot of, I tried to get, a reasonable amount of information because we're all a little bit different. We're actually more similar than we like to think, but we do tend to have different situations and different sort of propensities and different energy levels in particular. And when I say energy levels, I'm not talking about some pseudo-spiritual nonsense. I mean really the ability to do work, almost in the sense of physics, but here we're talking about productivity, getting our work done, our studying done, our coding done. So I said to this person two things. The first thing is you have to be patient. Be kind to yourself because you have a hell of a work schedule. So let me give you an analogy from one of my teachers when it comes to meditation practice. And it's just an analogy. So we're talking about, okay, we want to do something at a particular time. Well, I used to get myself into a lot of problems because I would have like a really difficult, stressed out day. And then originally I was following these really orthodox meditation instructions, which don't really work if you haven't spent your whole life in your culture sitting cross-legged on the floor. That's not really something we do outside of maybe California. But here in the West, you know, that kind of thing didn't work. So I would have maybe a really horrible work day. And then I'd say to myself, okay, it's time for my meditation practice. And then I would sit in a really uncomfortable position, which just led to incredible tension because my body was all messed up from, you know, working laboring jobs for 8 to 12 hours. And then I would expect myself to just sit down and you know, just float off into a cloud of samadhi, you know, right away. It's like trying to meditate on an anthill. So the first thing I just wanted to say is, my friend Ash, you've got to be patient with yourself. If you have a long, difficult work day and your mind is not prepared to focus and write code for a couple hours at the end of that very long day, be patient, be kind. That's a lot. You know, one thing that I try to remind myself is whatever is my best on the day, by definition, has to be good enough. Because if I'm expecting myself to be better than I actually am capable of, then I'm going to cause suffering. I'm going to get stressed out, and it's going to make my sleep worse, and it's going to make me angry, and all of these things are going to make the following day worse. At least that's been my experience. Now, that's one part, but probably most of you here want to hear something practical, and I will do my best to give that to you. So, understanding, be patient. It takes years to develop these skills. It takes years to look at your behaviors and your mind states and your daily schedule and to be able to optimize it for maximum work capacity, work efficiency. Now, on the very specific note that this person asked about, they don't have trouble focusing and watching, like, tutorials or good content. Like, it's not like a question of distraction in the sense of watching videos of cats or, you know, just random YouTube stuff. This person is able to focus on learning good content, but when it comes at the end of the day, time to do coding practice, the mind just doesn't want any of that. The mind, if I reflect on my own experience, the mind basically, you know, you sit down and it's time to write code, and you look at your code you're about to write, and the mind is just like, no, I don't want to. And then maybe you try and reason with your mind, well, I really need to do this. This is really important. So, and then you go to look at your code and go to type something out, and then the mind's like, no, I don't want to. Sometimes our minds are very like unruly children. So, 2 practical things. Number 1, how do we deal with an unruly child? Well, you don't abuse it. Going back to what I just said before, you don't get angry, because that causes psychological problems, and that's how you can ruin a child. And your mind is very much like that. So, but we've already talked about that. Next, take a break. How long? As long as you need to. Take a break, and when I say a break, I don't mean, and this isn't really a problem for this person based on what they've told me, but just speaking in general, a break doesn't mean distraction. A break means doing something that basically is just stimulating enough that the mind won't be bored to death, but isn't going to sort of stir the mind up. Go for a walk. If you meditate, have a meditation session. Don't try to slow your mind down. That doesn't work. Find an activity which allows you to let the mind settle. A classic analogy from one of my teachers, Ajahn Brahmavamso. So there's coffee in this mug here. You can see the reflection a little bit. How do you get the coffee? The coffee is my mind, which is both literally and figuratively the case right now. How do I get this thing to stop shaking, the water, the ripples, the restlessness? Well, if I just hold it in my hand and concentrate on it, well, I was born with hand tremors. I'm not making that up. My hands shake. Just holding it and trying to concentrate, that's not going to still it. So you just put it down. And when you put it down, it's sitting there, and over a period of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you need to do to get your mind in the right spot, eventually it will be still. So, that's the first practical thing. You need to take the CPU processing percentage down because you had a long, difficult day and you might have had to deal with a lot of stressful situations and your mind is carrying all those things. You need to just put them down. This will bring back mental energy so that you can focus. When I say mental energy, I'm not talking about some spiritual nonsense. You will understand what I mean when you practice these sorts of things. A happy, relaxed mind is a mind which is ready to do work. I'm staring very intently into the camera right now for emphasis. Take that to the bank. A happy mind is a mind that is ready to do work. And if you don't believe me, go watch my fucking 11-hour coding marathon. Because I had to use that a lot. You'll notice me 8-9 hours in from time to time smiling. That's me, my mind, I shouldn't say me, that's my mind making itself happy in order to carry on focusing on the task at hand. After coding for 9 hours, 10 hours. Took a lot of practice for me to get there. Thirdly, what I'll try to end on here. Okay, so my friend Ash, you've recognized that you've got a set schedule, you've got specific work periods, you've got studying programming through videos and stuff like that, and that's easy for you, which good on you. Even I often used to have trouble with something like that. And then you've got a period where you want to do your practical coding stuff. And anyone listening to this who's stuck just watching videos and not actually writing code, my friend, you need to write code. I spent more of my time writing code than I have done watching videos or reading articles. At this stage in my career, I very rarely watch videos. I almost always learn from writing code and looking at source code. For a beginner, that's not really appropriate, but that's what works for me. So, here's the thing. When I structure my work days, I make sure, for the most part, that the most difficult, mentally demanding task that I have to do, which for me, like you, is writing code, is the first thing I do in my day. Now, so the first thing is, you didn't really mention if you spend the morning writing code. If you don't already, whether or not you're a morning person, I don't really think of myself as a morning person, even though I typically wake up at 5 a.m. If it's a day where I'm supposed to write code, that's going to be the first thing I do. My experience has been, even if I kind of feel sleepy, in the morning, my mind isn't carrying 500 things. Trying to deal with family, mean things that customers said, random stuff, just carrying all this stuff. At the end of the day, unless you're a pretty experienced yogi or meditator, Your mind is going to be carrying 500 things, and that is, in my opinion, the reason why you're having this difficulty getting down to coding. So, I suggest, if you haven't already, your morning work block, if that is the time when you are most alert. If you're someone who feels like garbage every morning, probably that's a result of your lifestyle. But I guess there are people who do their best work late in the evening and stuff. I've never been able to relate to that, but do what works for you. I'm talking about my experience. In the evening, the first thing you do is you take a proper break. I did a video on this a couple days ago. Take a proper break, and you're not even watching good videos. If my mind is particularly restless, I'll sit down and I might put on the sound of, this sounds corny, but I'm just telling you what works for me. I might put on the sound of a mountain stream. Something continuous but not stimulating. I practice a certain kind of meditation now where I have something that I can use that's continuous all the time, which is very handy, but I needn't go into that. You need something that the mind can bathe in. The mind can focus on, but not like a tightness of focus, like I've got to write this code. Something that the mind can focus on so that it's not bouncing all over the place, jazz hands, but allows the mind to still, like I said before. So that should be the first thing you do at the end of your workday. The second thing I suggest you do at the end of your workday, if it is the case that it is pretty easy for you to watch educational videos, but it's difficult to get down to writing the code, in your evening work block, again, same principle. The first thing you do after you take a break, which is analogous to sleeping, maybe you even need to take a nap, because it sounds like you're only sleeping like 6 hours a night. Maybe you need to take, don't take a long nap, 12 minutes, lay down for 12 minutes, and just let everything go. Whatever the mind is carrying, put it down. And then after that 12 minutes, get up, make yourself a tea or something. I don't know, whatever you got to do. Go for a walk to wake up. And then hopefully your mind will be in a state where you'll have enough mental energy and focus to get the coding done. Once you've got that period done, then if you still feel like moving on to the watching videos or tutorials or stuff like that, you can do that. But again, we're prioritizing the most difficult task for you in the periods of our day when we are most likely to have the clarity and the mental energy to do them. So, I think that's pretty much all I can offer you. And then one final note. If you have a difficult day where you're physically tired, and then maybe you have a problem with a family member, because, you know, our family members, they're, you know, we love them, but sometimes they can be pretty awful. And unlike just random strangers, we don't have the option of just ignoring them. So, you know, that can be difficult. If you have a rough day and you're upset, and then you want to go and force yourself to write code for a couple hours, my friend, take the evening off, and then you have a new priority, which is, okay, I don't feel good right now. My mind is upset. I might be emotionally upset. I might be physically tired. Whatever you feel bad, your goal for that evening is to relax, to shut your screens off at an appropriate time, at least an hour before you go to bed, to not get lost in distraction, to go to bed and have a good night's sleep so that tomorrow you feel better. In my experience, you know, on really bad days, just expecting myself to work hard despite having an awful day is simply a recipe for anger and suffering and feeling even worse the day after. We don't have absolute control over our lives and energy levels and the mean things people say to us and the nice things people say to us and all these sorts of things. We have some control, but we don't have a lot. What we can do is whatever we decide is the best way of dealing with the situations, the bad things we're given. And it took me a lot of years to learn that sometimes the best thing to do after the end of a long day, in order to make sure tomorrow is more productive, unless tomorrow gets screwed up again, sometimes that happens, relax. Get your mind right. So, I don't know if any of that was useful. Ash, I think it's Ash, or anyone else who is listening. But hopefully there was something useful in there, and, you know, whatever isn't useful, ignore it. If there was anything, you know, great. And, yeah, good luck.